Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Fucking Business with your host, Jeffrey Prince.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Fucking Business podcast, brought to you by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project as well as DraftKings. We thank them both, as always, for their continued sponsorship of our program. This is episode 197, 197.
Whoa. Do it again. That's so good.
197. If you're following on the Spanish dial, you can get us there if you would like. You certainly can find us on the Spanish features available to you if you want like to utilize them in listening to this episode. This episode can be heard on Spotify and iTunes. You can watch it live right now on YouTube and Instagram. And we're taping this episode just so you know where we're at in time. If you're listening to us on replay at a later date, that is on Wednesday, June 4th. Go to the Bamboozle Project, as its sponsor that I just mentioned. Go check out their website. But most importantly, when you check out and you get all your MYPB gear, there's a lot of summer gear on the site. Hint, hint. Use promo code MYPB. Save yourself 20% off your entire order. And you can send us your questions, comments, concerns at any time you would like. And you can do that at Mind Your Fucking Business, all one word, at Instagram.
Oh, wait.
How do we do? Good?
Marvelous. Didn't miss a beat, dude.
We try. It's been a couple weeks. It's been
no
a couple
rust.
weeks. It's been 5 weeks. A lot of you guys have been writing in, where have you been? I'll tell you, I'm going to just tell you the true story, and I'll give you, there's two reasons why we haven't been on. It's very simple. One, this time of year with the Rangers, when you don't make the playoffs, there's not a lot going on. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to take away your time when you listen to us, and we value that you give us your time. We don't want to waste your time and just talk about nonsense because there's nothing to talk about. And the second reason why, my work job is brutal at the moment. So that's the two reasons why. But we are back today and we're happy to be with you. And we thank all of you guys I could see that are watching already. So it's good to be back. The offseason is underway here in the NHL. And when we last left you, which was April 30th, you were kind of almost at the precipice of the first round ending. And now you're at a point where you're at the Stanley Cup Finals, which we'll get into in a couple minutes after we talk about a lot of Ranger stuff today with the offseason. So what I'm about to say makes no sense. I'm going to totally contradict myself, and then I'm going to explain why I'm going to say what I'm about to say. And that is that the offseason, the NHL offseason, goes so fast, and it also takes forever. And you're like, well, hey, that makes no sense. That's two complete opposites. Well, let me explain why I say what I just said that. It goes fast in the sense that, you blink and free agency now is less than 4 weeks away, and you're down to only two teams in Edmonton and Florida that are still playing. So I think it's 30 of the 32 teams are already in offseason mode now with the Rangers, and free agency is underway. Well, will be underway shortly. So in that sense, it goes fast. But it also takes forever that when you don't make the playoffs, like the Rangers did this past season, you have to wait 5 months from mid-April when it ended. I think April 18th was that last game versus Tampa, till mid-September when the preseason starts. You have to wait 5 months to watch live hockey, and that is a lot. So it comes in spurts. The summer will get, and once you get into like the second half of July and August, that's when it really gets slow. But since we were on last, no real surprise, the Rangers hire Mike Sullivan as coach. Now, Mike Sullivan, if you look at the 2025 coaching class, or people that were available to coach this season, you would look at it and say to yourself that Mike Sullivan was the best that was out there. You could make an argument for me if you wanted to say Rick Tocchet maybe was on the same echelon, but Mike Sullivan is the current coach of Team USA. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. That, in terms of a resume or a coaching resume, which is what he's using when he's trying to get a job, is pretty darn good. And a lot of the other candidates that are out there cannot match that, right? That cannot be matched. So it's the right call for the Rangers, given what was out there and what their options were. And you knew on that Monday morning, which was this was April 28th, I think it was, if I remember correctly, that when Kyle Dubas, who's the general manager of the Penguins, decided, hey, we're not going to re-sign Mike Sullivan. We're going to let him out. We're going to let him go. We're going to go a different direction, which still to this day, I don't think the Penguins have even filled that vacancy. But what you knew that when Kyle Dubas decided that the Rangers were going to be super quick to jump in. So much so that when it happened at 10 a.m. on that Monday morning, if you follow us on Instagram, we did a story like instantaneously from the Chick-fil-A parking lot where I was, which was, hey, guess what? He's going to be your coach because now Mike Sullivan is available. The odds of Mike Sullivan becoming the coach of the New York Rangers has skyrocketed, and that's what they did. So now there were reports earlier this week, bringing it a little more current from back in Mike Sullivan was hired I think he was hired on May 1st. I think it was Thursday, May 1st, Friday, May 2nd was when he was hired officially. So there were reports earlier this week getting you up to June 2025 speed. And absolutely no surprise at all that the Rangers are basically saying nothing is off the table for Chris Drury and anything could be considered. Just this week, NHL insider Elliot Friedman said, and I quote, "The Rangers are a team to keep an eye on the next few weeks. Drury is telling teams he's ready for offers," end quote. Right? So you know right away that when you see something like this or you hear something like this, the Rangers are going to be active here. Now, if you have looked and you've spent time, and I hope that you have, if you follow the Rangers, I hope you've looked, and I'll even say it to B-Rock, who follows the Devils to my left, our producer in the corner. If you've looked at this year's UFA class or unrestricted free agents, meaning we'll go back to like layman's terms, it's a free agent who he can sign with any team, right? And you look at those people that are on the UFA list for this class of 2025. You cannot have a less impressive list than this year. It is awful.
So there's 0 people you want on that list.
And the other thing is the best piece on that list, and he's standing out right now because he's the best piece on the list, and he's getting way more attention than he deserves, and that is Mitch Marner. I wouldn't even, if I was Chris Drury, I wouldn't even reach out to his agent. Mitch Marner has a problem where he doesn't perform in the playoffs. He puts up great regular season numbers and doesn't perform in the playoffs.
Familiar.
Thank you. We didn't rehearse that. Correct.
Very familiar.
We don't need that here. We already have that. And he's going to get a lot of money and more money than he deserves because he is the cream of the crop of a very weak UFA class. And I wouldn't go anywhere near it. I wouldn't touch Mitch Marner if you told me I could have him at like 20% off whatever the market value he's getting. I still don't want him. And here's another reason why I don't want him. Because if you've done your research, and we posted this a couple weeks ago, next year's class is probably the most impressive free agent list I've ever seen in my life. It is. It is. You have Connor McDavid, who is a very good chance he doesn't ever touch free agency. But as B-Rock and I were talking before, man, would it be exciting if a generational player, maybe the best player that ever played, you could probably make that argument. I don't know you'd win it, but you could make the argument, was ever allowed to just say, all right, I'm a free agent. Who wants me? Who wants to pay me? Right? So you have him. You have Kirill Kaprizov in Minnesota, who's great. Jack Eichel, who Ranger fans are familiar with. Natchez, who's now in Colorado. Malkin, who's older. I'm not sure you would want that. Ovechkin is up there. He's not leaving DC. Jason Robertson in Dallas, who's a very good player and doesn't get enough enough acclaim nationally for who he is. They are all free agents next year. So knowing that this year's UFA class is not good and you want to have room for next year's class to try and take a chance at some of these people, the answer then is you're going to make changes this year through trading. Now, they'll sign some free agents, but none of the big names. Like, this is not the year. I always tell this story. I was boarding up. This is a 100% true story. I had a 12 o'clock flight to Denver for work on July 1st, 2019. And I was standing, and I remember this vividly. I was standing at the gate at Newark Airport. We were waiting to board. And I'm one of those idiots that, like, you're crowding the gate, to board the plane. And Chris, who's in the chat right now, was on a text with me while I was boarding. And someone had said, it wasn't me. I don't remember if it was Chris who said it. It could have well been him. Said, we're getting Panarin. Right. And you sat there and you said, wow, Artemi Panarin's coming here. I thought he was going to the Islanders. It seemed like it was an all but done. This is not going to be the year where this team surprises you and pulls off a free agent that you really love. And you have to come to terms with that. So
next year seems like it's going to be super exciting. A lot of moves, a lot of exciting characters in the mix.
Correct.
So there's nothing to be excited about this year. There's no
I'm
prospects we want.
not excited about the players, and I'm also equally not excited about spending money this year knowing I want to spend it next year. It's twofold. I don't love the players, but I also don't love spending money.
Not worth spending the money.
It's not worth spending the money. Now, will they sign some free agent defensemen for? Yeah, sure, but they're not going to be giving out big contracts. So the moves need to be made via trading. Now, I'm going to say something right now that's going to anger people. And I know it's either you're for this point or you're against it. And if you're against it, that's fine. You're entitled.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say something that's going to piss off a lot of Ranger fans. But this is just how I feel.
Uh-oh.
Chris Kreider cannot be on the opening night roster. He absolutely cannot be on the opening night roster.
Wow, that's what the one you want to start with? I thought you had a good segue with the defense, but go ahead.
No, Chris Kreider cannot be on the Rangers roster on opening night. Now, here's why. All right. Last year, or let's go back 2 years ago, 2023-2024, the Rangers win the President's Trophy. He has 75 points. He obviously also has a complete memorable game against Carolina to eliminate them with a third period hat trick. 75 points on the year. Mm-hmm. Last year, he dropped and had 30 points. That is not a regression. Mm-hmm. That is not age. That is falling off a cliff faster than the guy on The Price is Right on the cliffhanger game falls off the cliff if you overbid on an item, right? It's horrendous. Why would you think that whatever Chris Kreider is doing in this offseason, he's going to all of a sudden find his game and be back to the regular Chris Kreider we know and love? It's not going to happen. And here's the other thing. We just talked about the importance of next year's free agency class and clearing cap room. Mm-hmm. Chris Kreider's under contract for 2 more seasons. So that means next year, when the aforementioned free agent class is available, if he is still here, that's $6.5 million, right? I'm going to say that again. That's $6.5 million per year is counting against your cap and preventing you from signing other players. $6.5 million, when he signed that deal, in fairness, he was getting paid top 6 money. 30 points a season is not top 6 numbers, and I'm not convinced he's going to do it again. Chris Kreider cannot be on this team next year. And you also have to understand with it that you're not going to get anything substantial back in return. It might be very similar to the Jacob Trouba deal back in December, where really what you're getting out of the deal is salary cap relief, right? Mm-hmm. Anaheim, for some reason, said, we'll take Jacob Trouba. Oh, and by the way, we'll take the $8.5 million on the contract and we'll pay it. Okay. If you can find that for Chris Kreider, your return is not necessarily going to be a tangible player. It might be salary cap relief that you can either use this year or, more importantly, use next summer in the summer of 2026 when a very impressive free agent class is there. Now, it gets a little complicated because he can provide a 15-team no-trade clause. And he has a right to, right? He's been here for a while. I get it. I've never been, and I've taken flack for this, and it's fine. I've never been a huge Chris Kreider guy ever. I like him, right? I've never hated the guy, but there are some people here that I think get very emotionally attached to Chris Kreider, and it's never been me. Never been me. He disappeared this past year. He's getting paid $6.5 million for 2 more years. He cannot be on this team. He can't.
So let me ask you this. I'll call it the attitude era. Brian might like that. So when we make this attitude era, and what I mean by that is Chris Kreider part of the crew of individuals and teammates that you feel like we're playing poorly to get back at Chris Drury or against the coach? So is he part of the problem? In which case, you need to get rid of all these players. You're getting paid lots of money to play freaking hockey.
If that's the problem, then it's even more reason you need to not be.
Yeah. That's what I'm asking.
I don't know.
Do you feel like he's part of the
he probably
attitude
is.
era?
If there is an attitude, which there probably is, kind of a locker room issue with this group, he is probably part of it. But even if he's not, I don't care. He can't be here because he had 30 points and he's getting paid top 6 money.
True.
And there would be other teams, right? Mm-hmm. If I was a general manager of another team, there's definitely a way that I would sit here and say to myself, look, I can get Chris Kreider for 2 more years. He can help my team. I've seen Buffalo on the list. I think I saw Ottawa on there. You can argue to make the trade, but where it gets a little complex is he has the 15-team no trade clause. So he could very well sit here and make this difficult. Jacob Trouba was basically all but going to Detroit, from what it seems like last summer, and then Trouba wouldn't allow it. That's the danger of when these players have no trade clauses.
Mm-hmm. So what's is there any move that you foresee happening or could be excited about in regards to Chris Kreider? Is there a team that would be perfect suited for him? Is there a team that you think he would even accept being traded to?
No, I because I'm looking at it. There's not a team. The only thing that a team's going to give me back is salary cap relief. I don't care where it comes from. If I was looking at it trying to get a player back, I'd say, you know what, I'd like to trade him here for this player. But
I'm saying you're Chris Drury. How are you getting him off your team?
You're going to have to find a way, and the 15 teams that he's okay with going to, and getting them to
take the
contract.
Literally, you're asking for nothing back. You're just like, just take his salary.
I'm sure you'll ask for something back.
Give me this one defender that doesn't play.
Yeah. Now, Chris asked in the comments, well, how about Panarin's drop off? Well, Panarin in the President's Trophy year had 120 points. Last year, he had 89, which is a 31-point drop, but he still has 89 points. There's value there. Chris Kreider has a third of that, literally a third of that. We're not talking the same thing here.
Mm-hmm.
We're absolutely not talking the same thing. So Chris Kreider cannot be on the roster opening night. Now let's look at the.
You see Chris' comment?
Yeah, I just answered it. Yes, for him. UFAs. So UFAs again, 101 lesson here, are players that can go anywhere. The Rangers acquired at the deadline from Buffalo a player. I'm going to pronounce this. I always pronounce this guy's name wrong. Nicholas Abe-Kubel. You know who I mean if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I have literally no opinion on this. Calvin DeHaan is their only other UFA who probably will not be back because he bashed the entire team in the media on the last week after that Carolina game on that Saturday in April. I can't see Calvin DeHaan being back. I can't see Calvin DeHaan wanting to be here. I don't think the team is happy with him the way he handled it, so I can't see a situation. Now, where it gets a little complicated is when you look at RFAs. So RFAs are restricted free agents, meaning that another team will let's use Matt Rempe as an example, who is an RFA. If another team wants to sign Matt Rempe, they can sign him to a deal with a certain amount of years and a certain amount of value. The Rangers have the opportunity to match that. There are not traditionally in the National Hockey League, a lot of general managers try not to really RFA other teams' players, but they do. So you have to be prepared that it can happen. So when you look at the RFA list that the Rangers have, let's start with the one that I would say we all would be in agreement that the Rangers need to re-sign. Well, let me give you the list fully. Will Cooley, Matt Rempe, Adam Emstrom, Arthur Kaliev, Keandre Miller, Matthew Robertson, and Zach Jones. I don't know how you could argue that the number one player you would like to see them resign, if I had to go through those, let's see, 7 players, would be Will Cooley, right? The danger to me would be that another team RFAs him and RFAs signs him at a very high number that makes it difficult for Chris Drury to re-sign him. I would think Chris Drury has been in discussions with Will Cooley's agent, I'm sure, to try and get this done if it hasn't been done already. I would be shocked after the year Will Cooley has had, they let Will Cooley walk. Now, Will Cooley was probably the best surprise for this team this past year, but he didn't have, just so people remember, he did tail off at the second half of the year. Like, we're not, Will Cooley was not Will Cooley of November in March. Just wasn't. I don't know if anyone has the game-by-game breakdown of it, but he definitely was not that. So that is number one. I would be signing, of course, Will Cooley. The next person, Matt Rempe.
That's number 2 on 7?
Well, I'm going in order.
That's your number 2?
No.
That's your number? He said it here first, everybody.
I didn't. I'm just going in the order of the list I saw when I copied the list. Matt Rempe can look. I don't know what is a fair deal for Matt Rempe. And the reason I say that, and I'm not trying to make people mad, is I don't know what Matt Rempe still brings to the table. So I can't tell you what he's worth because I'm not sure what you're getting from Matt Rempe. If another team comes along and decides for some odd reason, hey, we're going to give Matt Rempe $4.5 million per year for $3 million because we're buying the Kool-Aid that we keep reading out of New York, Matt Rempe can pack his bag. I think the plan with Matt Rempe is you try to sign him for somewhere close to the league minimum. Now, he won't take the league minimum, and that's not fair. He deserves more than that, but not a lot more. That's okay. But if you told me Rempe Mania or whatever people use as the term would go away, I'd be okay with it. I wouldn't lose sleep.
So let me ask you this: for people like Matt Rempe on the unrestricted free agent list, let's just say some team does offer him this and he walks. Is there a similar player on that list that can be easily replace him
Yes.
for a cheaper price?
Matt Rempe is replaceable. There's no, I wouldn't even know what you would even try to give me as a reason if you told me that Matt Rempe was not replaceable.
So pretty much everyone from number 2 down is.
No. It's a random list. Keandre Miller would be on that, not where he is on the list.
No, what I'm saying is the only person you really care about on that list is Will Cooley.
No, we're not done with the other ones. There's going to be one more we're going to get into.
Okay.
Arthur Kaliev came over from the Kings this year. And really the thought was, well, hey, he had talented years. He hasn't been good lately. Maybe he can find his game in New York. You don't give up a lot for him. It's worth taking a flyer. And the reward is that he finds his game again. Kaliev didn't find his game. So if you told me Kaliev walked, I guess I'm okay. I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm if you want to bring him back for something that doesn't hurt your cap or go a lot against your cap as like a third line right wing where he kind of was playing, I can live with that too. I don't have it. The only piece of advice I would say with Kaliev is just don't overpay. If you're bringing him back, don't overpay. If he comes back at a fair price, that's fine with me. Keandre Miller. This is this is the most controversial of them all because everyone will tell you Will Cooley will come back. Matt Rempe isn't good, so I don't really care if he's back. Keandre Miller, he's a homegrown kid, drafted from the University of Wisconsin by the Rangers. Keandre had a terrible year. Sometimes as sports fans of a team, and with your own players, or players of the team you like, you sugarcoat things a lot. Like sometimes, he wasn't that bad. He wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. Keandre Miller was bad. And I like Keandre Miller, but Keandre Miller, I'm just saying, was really, really bad. I think, and I've said this all along, that they're going to bring him back, and here's why. Because if the goal of this team was to not bring him back, why would you have not traded him in March when you could have gotten something back? You knew you probably weren't making a deep run there and you were a seller, not a buyer. If you weren't going to bring him back this year, you would have moved him there if that was your plan, because then you would have gotten something back of value. Now you have him. Do you want to trust that Mike Sullivan can fix him? I mean, they did fire Phil Housley, who was in charge of the defense. So do you sit here and say, do you want to re-sign Keandre, give him another opportunity with a new head coach, with a new defensive coach to try and refine this game? I'm okay with that. I don't know what else is. I don't have a name of like another defenseman that I would love them to bring in or play. Now, if Keandre Miller is brought back and he has an October, November that looks like last year, it's a problem. Okay, so I would be concerned, but I would take Keandre back. Matthew Robertson, if you can re-sign him, young kid, okay, fine with it. I don't think he's overly talented. I'm impartial. Okay. Zach Jones. I'm gonna anger Chris now, who's in the chat. Zach Jones, I've always said this, is not an NHL defenseman. He's too small. And if the team thought that he was, or he is actually, forget what the team said, if he is an NHL defenseman, with the year the Rangers have had, with the way Keandre played, with the fact that they moved out Trouba and defensive spots opened up, he still couldn't crack the lineup on a regular day basis. Zach Jones, and I don't think Zach Jones wants to be here. Zach Jones, if you kind of read some of the stuff the beat writers have said, and it would make sense, is not happy here. He's not getting a chance. I don't think he wants to be here. I don't know where people get off sometimes thinking that Zach Jones is going to be this NHL superstar defenseman one day. He's not. I've never understood the Zach Jones hype at all. And I'm not being rude. I don't know where it is. We'll take an Instagram comment about Chris Kreider with the injuries. Going back to Chris Kreider. Yes, he was hurt, but I have to factor that in going forward. He still didn't produce. So if he was hurt, am I going to assume that he's going to be 100% healthy now next year and going to return to, and it wouldn't be fair to say, okay, is he going to return to 70 points 2 years ago? Because he's 2 years older, right? So there's always some regression you've got to believe. But the injuries is just, it adds another concern to me of why he shouldn't be here. But that, you're right, it could equate to why he didn't have the kind of year that he had previously in all of his years here in New York. So back to the RFAs. I will take Will Cooley back. Rempe can walk. Edstrom, I'm impartial. Kaliev, I'm impartial. Keandre, I'm going to say that I would probably give him another shot. Don't shoot me for that. Matthew Robertson, I'm impartial. And Zach Jones, if someone wants to offer sheet him, they can let him go.
So, Brian, what's the mode in Madden where you just basically draft the whole league again? Franchise, but it's like Dream Fantasy franchise, whatever.
Like a fantasy draft franchise?
Yeah, kind of. Anyway, my question to you is:
Mm-hmm.
all of our free agents and the unrestricted free agents, if you were to put them, if you were to mix them, like just take them off our team and put them onto the list of the unrestricted free agents, is there a couple sticking out? Like, you know what, I won't. Zach Jones is too small, so I'd much rather have this guy at a similar price. Like, what's your?
Well, Zach Jones is not so the only unrestricted free agents are Abe Kubel and Dahan,
Gotcha.
neither of which I think are coming back.
Gotcha.
So RFAs, they would need to be signed and then offer sheeted, and the Rangers have a chance to match it.
Mm-hmm.
If some of them, I think what you're getting at is if some of them got offer sheeted and left, and then you had to turn to what's out there in the UFA crop, could you replace it? Probably.
Replace it better.
I'd have to look at the full UFA list across the league. I haven't done that. I looked at it briefly at the top players, and I wanted to puke. I'm like, why would you? why would you want any of these guys? And the other problem is, like I said, you have a guy like Mitch Marner, and it's no disrespect saying Mitch Marner's a bum because he's not, but he's going to get paid more than he should because he's in a UFA class where he's the best player.
Mm-hmm.
You put him in there next year, I mean, he still would be one of the top guys, but he's absolutely not the top guy, right? So don't overpay for a guy like that. I heard that he might go to Utah. I don't know why you would want to do that. God.
Yeah.
I mean, unless
Ekblad, Besser.
Brock Besser's on there. That's right this year. Who else is on? Who? Ehlers, yeah, from Winnipeg.
Mangiapane from Washington. It's not great, though.
No. It's not. Look, there's players there in the UFAs this year that you can plug into your lineup and use them.
Yeah.
But there's no one there that's going to blow you away.
Okay, there's no superstar, but we need some pieces here. So like you said, Keandre Miller is a very touchy subject. Like, is there, especially since the draft class is not that great, you might be able to get a decent player for cheap. So is it worth it looking elsewhere instead of signing Keandre or Zach Jones? Is there any difference?
I would think, because I don't think Chris is in the chat. He would know more than me. RFAs, I think, generally are back the following year. I mean, I'm sure there's some situations where they're not, but I would think if you're an RFA, like the most likely jersey you're going to put on the next season is the one that you're an RFA for. Mm-hmm. So they probably all would be back. But all I'm saying is if someone said, I want to offer sheet Zach Jones, okay, go. Au revoir. Peace out.
Yeah. No, I'm getting that.
Enjoy.
I'm just saying, is there anyone we're remotely excited about to plug into this piece?
No. Who? Patty Kane. I could see the Rangers being dumb enough to do that. What were his? You know what? Actually, can I take that back? Let me take back the comment "dumb" of that, because I think he had a somewhat decent year. Hold on a sec. Let me look this up before I say, because it's not fair to you. So he had 20. Yeah, you know what? He had 21 goals and 68 points. What is it?
$4 million AAV.
Yeah, but he's a UFA.
Yeah, you can get him for like 4.5.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he is still good friends with Panarin, but Panarin also may not be here beyond next year. This is Panarin's last year. I can touch on the subject today of would you trade Artemi Panarin, because I don't have the time to do that. Mm-hmm. But Patrick Kane may be intrigued to play here. Like, if you could get Patrick Kane for a 1-year deal at 3.5 per, or even 4, I would do that. Yeah, that'd be fine. But does it get you like excited like when Panarin came here in 2019? No. I mean, we've seen Patrick Kane before, right? And I would hope that if they signed him, I'm getting more now than I did the first one, because the first one was not overly exciting or anything close to it. So that is where we're at on the Ranger front. Free agency officially opens on it is a Tuesday, July 1st this year.
Wow.
Tuesday, July 1st. So I will be out of the country, but we will be on Instagram as we were last year, following that.
Wow,
But again, I wouldn't be sitting there on July 1st, like when free agency opens at 12 o'clock and waiting for them to sign someone by 12:09.
Mhm.
This could be the sort of year similar to last year, because I remember this. I was away too, and we were at the hotel, and I kept like updating, talking to people, and
Nothing's
they're
going
like,
on.
nothing's going on. And you're sitting there and you're like, is Chris, I remember people saying, like, is Chris Drury awake? Like, is he aware? But you're probably I think you're more likely to get that approach this year to free agency than you
Mhm.
even were last year, because of what's out there. And they don't have the room. They don't have the room to do that. So, and Sean brings up the point on Keandre Miller. If you don't sign him, the left side of the defense is atrocious. Correct. And again, I think
as opposed to
but I don't think that they're looking at moving on from him, because if that was their long-term plan with Keandre Miller in March, nothing's changed, they would have gotten rid of him already. Why would you not? You could have gotten something for him. Some contender. I'm not saying you were going to get a first-round draft pick for him, but you could have at least gotten something back for him. Now you're kind of like stuck where you really can't.
True.
All right, switching gears. So we were on, the last time we were on was April 30th. And that was one day before the Thursday night. So at that point in time, if I remember correctly, the Knicks were the Knicks were the night before they won the series in Detroit in Game 6, where Brunson hit that shot to go on to play the Celtics. So the Knicks win that Detroit series in 6, line up with Boston, and everyone and their mother, probably rightly so, said the Knicks have zero chance. Maybe they win a game. Okay. So the Knicks take the first 2 in Boston, come home. My kids, so my kids want, I have season tickets for the Knicks. My kids wanted to go to Game 3 versus the Celtics, which was the Saturday afternoon of Mother's Day weekend. Now, we couldn't go because we were doing Mother's Day with my wife's side of the family at our house that day. But I also said to them, I said, this is the type of game that the Knicks will 100% lose. They're not going up 3-0, right? All the hype and all that. So they lose Game 3. They win Game 4 when Tatum gets hurt, and they close out the series in 6. And anyone who says that they won this series because Tatum was hurt is a moron, because they won the first 2 games with Tatum in the lineup. And they won Game 4 where Tatum was in the lineup until maybe like 2 or 3 minutes left. And they were not guaranteed that they were going to win that game when he went out there in the fourth quarter, but they were pretty close to winning that game with Tatum in there the whole time. So deserved win. So now they go on and play Indiana. Now I thought, and this is stupid me, I had said something to someone where it was like, you know what? If they can get past Boston, this is the best chance that they will ever have, because you'll have home court in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Indiana's good, right? I cannot remember, and I've been a Knick fan I'm 45, so you figure I remember the last 35 years of basketball, and I'm going back to like the Jordan years, the 90s, the Reggie Miller years in the late 90s. I've the Houston Rockets Game 7 of the finals when John Starks didn't show up. I know it all. I cannot remember a more frustrating, annoying game than Game 1 versus Indiana when they were up. What were they up, B-Rock? 17 with 2 minutes left, or 17 with 3 minutes left? And when they lost that game, you knew, right? You knew that would come back and haunt them in some ways. The Knicks weren't going to go out and then use that game as motivation and win 4 straight. You knew that it would come back and hurt them. And then they lose Game 2 at home. The whole it's as B-Rock and I were talking before, it's being a New York sports fan right now is just brutal in the way that these teams are losing. Tom Thibodeau yesterday is fired. Now, I don't know enough about the NBA to tell you who to go out and get. I don't know enough about the NBA to tell you this is where Tom Thibodeau screwed up as a coach, because
Mhm.
I don't. And I'm not going to pretend to talk about X's and O's, because I hate talking about stuff on here that I don't know about, because I don't ever want to waste your time.
Mhm.
But what I'm going to tell you is this. There were reports that in the exit interview with the players, so anytime a season ends for any team,
Mhm.
not just New York, the players, when they go to their locker room cleanout day, they will have exit interviews with management, general manager. What did you think of the coaching staff? What worked? What didn't work? What could improve? Blah, blah, blah. James Dolan, who also owns the Rangers,
Mhm.
sat in on those meetings. Decided yesterday morning, it sounds like, with Leon Rose to fire Tom Thibodeau. Where does that sound? What is the Ranger correlation trivia for those of you watching? If you can put in the comments, why does that sound familiar? Where have we seen this behavior before with the Rangers? Because it's very eerily similar.
Yeah.
I'm going to repeat this. He sat in on the exit interviews with the players and made a move to fire a coach that had a good run here.
Yeah.
Tom Thibodeau at 24, I saw a stat last night, had 24 postseason wins, okay? And in those 24 postseason wins, that is 24 more than any other coach, I believe, has won in a post, which is incredible. Now,
Brian had a great quote yesterday. He makes the Final Four out of 32 teams. Dude should get a raise, not get fired.
okay, it's true. The answer to the question,
Thanks.
no,
Okay.
I don't disagree with you.
No,
I don't disagree with your point.
it's
The
Brian's-
answer
Brian's
is in
point.
2013. Yeah, well, he's right. In 2013, well, she's close. Emma said he did it with Laviolette, but he didn't just take them to the finals. That is a good question, but he did it with more Tortorella in 2013, because he had said, Dolan came out then and said, I'm the one who decided it to get rid of him based on the exit interviews. In 2012, John Tortorella won the President's Trophy here, and they fell in Game 6 to B-Rock's Devils in the Eastern Conference Finals. The following year was a strike-shortened year. The Rangers got through the first round of the playoffs. I think they won it in Game 7. They did. They won it in 7 in Washington, and then they got beat by a very good Boston Bruins team that went on to lose in the Cup Final. And Tortorella, who got through 2 rounds of the playoffs in a strike-shortened year and had just won the President's Trophy, was let go.
So let me ask you this, right? Because we're going through different sports too. So this is a good segue here. So how come this is always a problem with like New York teams, and like they come in, they complain about the coach gets fired, right? How come we let that we let this precedent happen, whereas like you have a coach like Mike Tomlin for the Steelers, who's a very strict coach, whatever, but has his job, and like the players aren't starting to mutiny. Like how come our coaches in New York aren't getting the respect, or they're not like the players aren't listening to them?
I don't think
There's
it's
mutinies.
I don't think it's a New York thing. I think you hear about it more here. Like Mike Malone, who probably would be my guess who's going to get the Knicks job, was let go in Denver. He had just won the NBA title 2 years ago. So it's similar there, but you don't hear about it because it's not under the microscope like it is here. I don't think it's a New York
But that was
thing.
2 years ago. Did he get fired right after he won the
No,
championship? Yeah.
but Thibodeau didn't win the championship either. I'm not going to say, and I'm not saying, because I don't have an answer. I don't know enough about basketball to tell you the reasons that Thibodeau should have been fired. I have no idea.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, for example, we have the Rangers players we feel like have been playing poorly on purpose because they want to get back at Chris Drury, or they're not happy with the coach. Like, where do these players get off? Like, you're getting paid millions of dollars of money. Like,
Well,
play
that's
the
a
damn-
problem.
play the game.
That's a problem. I don't know if it's a New York thing. Again, I mean, it's obviously is a New York thing. It's a matter of if it's in other places. I don't know.
Like, how do you change that culture? But obviously by giving
Well,
into it.
No, you change the culture by either getting rid of the players or getting rid of the problem. And they're not doing that with Chris Drury because they already resigned him to a multi-year extension. So these players have to say to themselves, look, if I was sitting here and sitting on my ass for a year because I didn't like Chris Drury, guess what? Chris Drury's still going to be here. You need to leave.
Yeah.
But I'd like to believe that professional athletes don't do that sort of stuff, but I don't know. The Stanley Cup Final starts tonight. It is a repeat of last year. You have the Florida Panthers visiting the Edmonton Oilers. The only difference this year is that Edmonton has home ice. So if there's a Game 7 like there was last year, it would be held north of the border. In the pick'em or the line for this series is fascinating because it's basically a pick'em. I'm going to take, because Jeff Adelson has been asking in the comments, I am going to take the Florida Panthers because until someone beats them, they have the better goalie. I understand McDavid is in Edmonton, which is a massive advantage, but they have the better goalie in Bobrovsky. I like Paul Maurice better than I do Knobloch, and that's not a knock on Knobloch. They're also the defending champs. I have to take Florida. It doesn't mean that I want them to win, but if I was picking who's going to win, I'm taking Florida. B-Rock, you're taking Edmonton, you said? Yeah, B-Rock thing. And your reasoning was that McDavid's just going to show up and be on another level, which is possible. It could definitely happen. I'm going to take Florida. B-Rock takes Edmonton. Who do you want to take?
I think I'm going to be on your train. Prove us otherwise that you're the champion.
Yeah. So I even picked, if the last time, well, I guess it was 2 shows ago we were on when we did NHL playoff picks. The first round, I picked Tampa beating Florida. So now I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, like I think the Panthers are going to win, but I'm kind of rooting for the Oilers.
Yes.
Like, there's a difference between betting with your heart and betting with your logic.
Who I would like to win, I probably would like Edmonton. Canada has not won a Stanley Cup since 1993, which is remarkable. Connor McDavid deserves it. But B-Rock and I had a good point. If you want him to test free agency next year, which we all want him to because you want to have that dream of him going to your team, you would be better off with him not winning the Stanley Cup and him getting frustrated.
True.
But could you argue the opposite, B-Rock, like LeBron, when he won it in Cleveland, he said, look, I got you a championship. Let me go. I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma.
True.
I'm not sure the answer. So before we go, it's the time of the year for graduations in the spring. We're in June. My 2 kids each graduate from their school in the next 2 weeks. But I want to give a shout out. Well, I should always give a shout out to my kids, but give a shout out to one of our listeners who's graduating and DMs us all the time. And that is Maddie, who lives up in Westchester. An amazing end to a high school softball career this past weekend. They played in the Class B section finals against plays for Dobbs Ferry, but played Class B section finals, finished her senior season. And I'm going to repeat this stat because you're going to think this isn't true. Batting .380, which would be like, Hall of Fame numbers if that was professional. So finished her senior season batting .380 on a heck of an amazing run of a high school softball career. So we congratulate Maddie on that. That is it for us today. We appreciate you listening. I appreciate the patience the last couple of weeks when we haven't been on. I don't know when we'll be on again. Probably, I would guess if you made me bet, we're either going to be on the last week of June before free agency, so 3 weeks, or we're going to be on in 5 weeks when free agency is over. Well, when free agency has been like in for a week, and we kind of have stuff to talk about.
Maybe one in the middle for
Somewhere,
the finals.
Yeah, somewhere in there. We'll figure it out. But you can always access us on Instagram. We are always there, literally every day. You can always get in touch with us there. Always curious to hear your off-season thoughts. I like some of the stuff that you guys had today. It is a little bit strange talking about hockey when it's 90 degrees outside. I will say that. We would thank DraftKings and the Bamboozle Project for their sponsorship. Promo code MYPB saves you a whopping 20% on the Bamboozle Project. I actually just placed an order of some end-of-the-year gifts for people yesterday. Actually, last night at home. I did use the
Now's
promo
the time
code.
to get the bathing suit and the flip-flops.
Yeah, because it is that time of year.
Yeah.
I should get the flip-flops.
Why don't you have the flip-flops?
I don't know. I'm not sure why I don't. I should have done that.
Come on. You don't got the flip-flops?
I should.
And the bikini? You don't own the bikini? Sitting by the pool?
I'm not.
Getting a tan in your bikini?
Hey, I was planning on going to get lunch after this. Don't ruin my appetite, right? And you know where I was going to go. You know where I'm going to.
TS Ma, baby.
TS Ma. All right. So we thank you guys for listening. As always, we will talk to you in a couple of weeks.